Hey guys, I've had a lot on my mind today. I was watching this really great YouTube video from Danielle's Advocacy. I'll put like her YouTube handle in the description. And she made this video on intrafamilial child torture. And she shared this really great Psychology Today link. And so for the last 5 years that I've been in therapy, off and on, I have come to accept that I was true, like in all senses of the word, like abused as a child by my mother. But I've realized since watching these videos that I really have been downplaying it to myself, because I was not physically beat, I was not sexually penetrated, I was not starved. I didn't really consider myself abused for a really long time, and nor did the concept of being tortured as a child genuinely cross my mind. Though I often felt as though I was being tortured, I kind of just told myself I was making a big deal out of nothing. Um, but I just want to touch on some of the different subjects, where when these are all put together, it constitutes child torture. So one of the first things in the Psychology Today article was isolation. And I guess I never really admitted to myself just how isolated I was, because I still went to school, public school. I would occasionally be able to, before like middle school, I'd had maybe 2 sleepovers at my house. And so it wasn't that I never had a sleepover, but looking back, that's not a lot. So here's what I wrote down. Just so I don't usually write anything down before I make my videos. I just go with whatever's in my head. But there's a lot here. So with isolation, my mother would always say how terrible her family was, and like she was always shit talking people. That was just kind of the thing. Like her and her mom would talk on the phone, gossiping for hours every evening about the rest of the family. And so I didn't really realize it at the time, but this was kind of a way to isolate me, despite I saw them usually at Christmas, maybe like Thanksgiving. Those kind of stopped for after a while, but we definitely would go to Christmas a lot. So I didn't think of myself as isolated from my family, but looking back, I definitely see how I was very uncomfortable around my mother's family because I'd been told all these terrible things about them constantly. And so it never allowed me to really see them as like safe people that I could come to about any of the stuff I was going through. And then again, I wasn't really ever allowed to have friends over. And I definitely was not allowed to go to friends' houses. And once I did get the ability to go to people's houses in high school, to friends' houses, my mom would have to call their mom and make sure I was going there, which none of my friends really wanted to do. It was embarrassing, and it was kind of just another means to like socially isolate me. And then she would also shit talk the neighbors, and she would like make all kinds of unfounded claims about like, oh, I think they're a pervert, or one of her things was she really liked to call people heathens. Which, whatever, because they were not as Christian as her, or whatever. Her whole family, heathens. The neighbors, heathens. Even if they went to church, heathens. Another big thing, too, with the kind of isolation was, again, with my mom shit-talking her own family. She had a sister that she would say molested her, and she would talk to me when I was like 13 about how this aunt was making my cousin sleep in bed with her in nightgowns with no panties on, and like I was supposed to feel lucky that I didn't have to do that. But then she would make us spend every Christmas at this aunt's house every year and would tell me to not be alone with her. And so again, this just kind of furthered my isolation and simultaneously kind of normalized like child sex abuse and grooming for me. Oh, and then if I did ever want to talk to her about any friends I'd made or friends I had, she would either call them like a bad influence and say I shouldn't be hanging out with them or wasn't allowed to hang out with them, or she would tell me that they were using me, or that they were just pretending to like me and that no one really liked me and they all just felt bad for me, so that it would cause rifts in my friendships and make me feel isolated despite having friendships, and always like questioning, like, is this person just friends with me so that they can show off all their like nice items and I'll feel poor. But really that was all just projection on her end. As far as extreme isolation went, the summer after I turned 15, well, I spent my 15th birthday in a psych ward for running away and trying to kill myself. And so that summer, I was not allowed to go outside at all. I couldn't go to our pool in the back. I couldn't even go get the mail because she was afraid I was going to run away. I was not allowed sunlight. I had additionally had my phone taken away. I wasn't allowed to draw. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I basically spent that whole summer alone in my bedroom, just staring at a wall. And that's still really difficult to think about. I can't imagine ever treating any human like that, much less a child. And this one, I kind of just came to me too. I realized, like, I wasn't ever allowed to just, like, go on a walk around the neighborhood. Even though we lived, there was, like, a cul-de-sac nearby and stuff. I really was not allowed to just go on walks. Now, from 1st to 2nd grade, we did live directly on a cul-de-sac as opposed to like a little further away from one. But in 1st and 2nd grade, I was allowed to leave and go jump on the trampoline at my friend's house and stuff. But it was weird because when we moved, when I was in 3rd grade, there was like a busy road near our house. Yet our neighborhood, you know, you could go in and it was a regular neighborhood with a little cul-de-sac and stuff. But she used that as an excuse to not let me or my brother actually go play outside in the front yard. A little bit in the backyard after we got a fence put up. But I wasn't allowed to go for like walks throughout the neighborhood, even in high school, because I was gonna go get high or whatever. I really was imprisoned in this house when I was home. So that's just the isolation part. The next part they talked about is humiliation. And I put that also too in my notes with like gaslighting and mind games, because I feel like humiliation, gaslighting, and mind games, while they're all separate things, they kind of ran together in like the same vein for me, in my experience. So humiliation, there's definitely the name calling. I'm sure she called me a lot more, but I'm just going to read down what I remembered. She would call me fat, ugly, zitty, because I was a teenager dealing with acne, a slut, a whore, white trash, ungrateful, rude, brat, snotty, worthless, not good enough. And specifically one name-calling event, which I'll probably touch on later, was calling me a sick lesbian pervert. That one has really stuck with me, because she believed that any gay or lesbian person was a child sexual abuser. Pretty telling on her, you know? Let's see. She used to tell me that Asian people did things backwards. I'm part Chinese. My father's Chinese and Portuguese. She used the fact that Chinese people read right to left as like a way to kind of imply that my brain worked backwards and that whenever I wanted to think up something or do something, it was wrong, basically. And this later come up too with being told I had perception issues, which means I didn't see life right. My perception was just wrong. It is laughable now, but very damaging as a child. Let's see. She would also call me dirty for not knowing how to clean my room, but then I was never taught how to clean, like anything. And then when I would try it on my own, I would be told that I wasn't doing it right. I would be degraded and called stupid for even trying to learn how to, like, clean. No one told me what, like, products you're supposed to use. She would clean the house in bleach all the time, and I hated the smell of bleach, and I would try and use the bleach, but then, of course, if I got it on something, it would, you know. But anyways, so I was dirty in a way to her because I didn't know how to clean, but yet she never taught me how to clean. So that's kind of like a bit of humiliation and like a mind game and kind of gaslighting, I guess, in a way. And I don't know. Maybe not the gaslighting, but she also once told me that I should have been aborted, and she has always staunchly been against the concept of abortion. So that was supposed to be extra hurtful to me, to imply that she would betray her own morals and values to get rid of me. When I was 15 and struggling with bulimia, there was one time, I guess she'd heard me throwing up in the toilet, and when I came out, she started mocking me, going, make sure you scrub the toilet. And like, God, that's just so like, I felt gross even just mimicking her mocking me. But like, yeah, so that's definitely humiliation to me. Also too, when she discovered that I had been self-harming, cutting myself. Of course, she put me in a psych ward, and I was ridiculed for that as well, that I was pathetic and stupid and ungrateful for being so depressed. And then later, too, as I became an adult after being a mother, I still had contact with her for a bit. And one of the last, like, kind of things that happened in our relationship was I had taken up to modeling, and I had a picture that was actually featured at a, like, local, like, art exhibit for Mardi Gras one year. And my butt was showing. I wasn't completely naked or anything, but it was definitely like an artsy photograph. And she printed it out and showed my 2-year-old, saying, "Look at mommy's butt. She's a whore." Which is just completely wildly inappropriate to say anything like that to a 2-year-old. Second off, too, part of this goes into the gaslighting. My son has come forward and told me this as he's gotten older, that he vividly remembers her trying to convince him that she was his mother, and him being really confused when when he would come back with me after she would babysit him, and wondering why he thought I was his mom, but then he was being told that she was his mom. And so I didn't even know this was happening back then. Like I said, my son has only come forward and told me this since like last year. He's 10 now. Let's see. And then, so that was all what I had under humiliation. Oh, and she would accuse me of being high all the time because my eyes are small. It's my Asian eyes. Sorry, I can't change it. And the funny part was, whenever I would be high, she wouldn't even say anything. So, like, whatever, bitch. You're just racist. Here's the gaslighting and mind games bit that I'd written down. She would make my dad physically abuse me so that I would not like him either. Even though I always knew he only did it because she made him, basically. And then to the whole comment of being a sick lesbian pervert was when I confronted her when I was 15, about these memories I'd had of her inappropriately touching me. And I didn't really even know that was like child sex abuse then. I had these confusing memories, and I was looking for clarification. And I remember this. We were at a mall, and my dad and my brother were like in some shoe store or whatever, and she screamed at me at the top of her fucking lungs. So where like everyone looked at me. It was very humiliating and shameful. She was like, "You're a sick lesbian pervert." And I just was so embarrassed that I never ever brought it up to her again. And she also tried to use this method to silence my son, coming forward about her sexually abusing him as well. And it worked for him. He was diagnosed with PTSD very young and has been in therapy since then, trying to work for, and has luckily found his voice in sharing with me his own memories with her. But yeah, the gaslighting. Oh, none of this happened, by the way. That's what she'll say. None of this ever happened. I'm just completely fabricating it because I must be a sick lesbian pervert, right? And I just fantasize about my disgustingly ugly mother. Like, honestly, I like women. She's ugly. And not even just in the face. It's her soul mostly that is just disgusting to me. Okay, what else is in gaslighting and mind games? Oh yeah, the perception issues. It's kind of funny but not funny looking back. She tried to use family counseling one time to gaslight me. And then when the counselor inevitably, like, I remember the counselor calling her out on what perception issues meant. And from then on, she quit family therapy. And after about 1 or 2 sessions, she made my dad quit family therapy too. And my little brother was never even invited to family therapy, because he wasn't an issue, right? Therapy was just for the problem child. So yeah, I effectively probably spent a couple months doing family therapy by myself, which is like just a perfect like representation of what it was like for me growing up, to the point where the counselor was like, "Hey, if you guys aren't going to come back to family therapy, this is just individual counseling. I'm a family therapist." So I had to eventually quit there as well. And I remember being sad because I actually felt like she cared. Even though I didn't really want to go to family therapy at first, I remember our few sessions that we had alone, I really felt like she cared. And probably my mom was interested in pulling me out too, so that the family secrets didn't get shared to someone who could actually care and do something. Um, but yeah, she said that we ganged up on her in family therapy, um, which is what she was trying to do to me with family therapy, which is just silly. Um, Gift giving was a way that she would play these mind games with me. So I wrote down clothes were one of the things that she would really hit me with. She would buy me cute clothes, but they would be the wrong size. They'd be too small. And so I would have to look at these clothes, try them on, and feel bad, feel fat, because I couldn't fit into them, but they just weren't the right size. The only clothes that would fit me would be like ugly clothes that I didn't want to wear that would get me made fun of in school. And so, sometimes I just kept them and I just would either try to not wear them or like change them. I was really into fashion design. But when I would give them back saying like, I don't want this, I would be ungrateful because they fit. What's wrong with it? Oh, you just don't like it? You're just a brat, And then she would give me clothes that would be like 5 sizes too big. Like I was this height, like almost 5'8", and I was about 100 pounds, which is underweight according to BMI. And she would get me clothes that were like a size 12 or 16. I was in a size 3, and she'd be like, man, I hope they're big enough for you. And like, again, this was to make me feel insecure about my body and feel fat. Like, oh, I know I'm skinny, but people see me as fat. My own mother sees me as fat and thinks I have to wear this size. And then whenever if on the off chance she got me something that I actually liked and that fit, she would have to get herself a better version. So I would get like the Walmart version of something, and then she would go and get herself like a nice name brand version or something like that. And it would then she would talk about how great hers was and how cheaply made my new gift was. And it was just like a weird mind game thing. And then later too, into my late teens and early adulthood, when like cell phones started to have like video cameras on them, she would say and do all kinds of really disgusting, provoking things. And if I reacted, she would start to record me so that she could like show people that I was crazy. Okay. And so then the next part in that article was physical abuse. And at first I wrote no physical abuse, but that's kind of not true. So my mom would make my dad spank me with wooden spoons, over and over and over again until they broke. And, me being a little rebel, I finally got it to stop because I stopped crying. I stopped acting like it hurt. I would dissociate. I didn't know that's what I was doing then, but I would dissociate from the pain and be outside of my body, blank. And once she stopped getting that reaction from me, once I learned to dissociate, I saved myself from the physical abuse. She also medically neglected me. I have always had stomach issues and asthma, and like a weakened immune system. And she would basically only take me to the doctor for like school records, but that was it. I wasn't allowed to have the HPV vaccine because she thought it was an STD, and I wasn't supposed to be sexually active. But mind you, HPV can be passed from a toilet seat or a used towel. So I later had to go get myself vaccinated for HPV as an adult. And then sexual abuse was the next one. There are different kinds of sexual abuse, and this is a really hard thing for me to talk about. So I'm just going to kind of gloss over this part because I'm not really ready to share everything. But there was overt, non-penetrative sexual molestation of myself from my mother until I was about 3 years old. And then it turned to covert sexual abuse, which is sexual abuse without physical touching. And so one of the things she would do was whenever she would use the bathroom, she refused to close the door, like no matter how old I got. And then she would try to talk to me while she was like urinating or pooping, and would get like really mad at me if I didn't come and like look at her. And like there was this thing too where I had to always make eye contact with her the entire time, or I was a terrible selfish brat. And then more covert sexual abuse, she would always make like comments degrading my body as I was going through puberty about how my butt was very big or my boobs weren't big enough, and like just sexualizing my body rather than normalizing that everyone goes through this. I There was a time period in high school where I was not allowed to have a bedroom door. I'm not gonna lie, I kicked a hole through it. I had a lot of aggression issues as well. And so she took my bedroom door off the hinges, and I remember the first time that morning, I went to go change clothes in the bathroom because I was like, well, my door went right down to a hallway into the living room. You could see me through the hallway. Like, it was not like, this is not a big house, you know? And I remember getting yelled at for changing in the bathroom. And as she was going off, I was just like, what do you want me to do? Change in front of you so you can see my naked body, you pervert? And that shut her up, because that was exactly what she wanted, was to dehumanize me and also get her sick sexual fantasy kicks taken care of as well. It was like a twofer for her, but I did not allow that to happen. Additionally, I was not ever allowed to lock my bathroom door when I was taking a shower. It wasn't my bathroom. Me and my little brother shared this bathroom, but I wasn't allowed to lock the door when I was showering or going to the bathroom, because I was doing drugs in the bathroom, which I smoked weed at around 14, and yeah, but she was like convinced I was a heroin user or something, that I was like passing out in the bathroom doing drugs when I would take like a 30-minute shower. And it's like, no, I just liked the shower. Oh, and she would always like randomly burst into the shower if I was in there for more than 10 minutes, because she'd be like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know if she was hoping that I was like masturbating in there and she would catch me or what. Which, by the way, she believes masturbation is evil, yet she's the one molesting children. Anyways, and okay, part of the covert essay also is that she would talk to me about her sister molesting her. And I was really young. Like, I wasn't even a teenager. I was a child. And I remember even then almost like feeling like she was trying to brag to me, but like just being really confused, like why she was saying it that way. Oh, and when I was in when I was in middle school, my friends started wearing thongs, and I wanted to wear a thong too. And I remember when she found one of my thongs, she thought that I was like having sex and told me how I was a slut and a whore and I was going to end up pregnant and all this stuff, which is not, I don't know, maybe not sexual abuse, but it was shaming of my sexuality, and I hadn't even had sex yet. Additionally, before I'd had sex as well, I remember asking my mom for a sex talk, because in 4th grade we had the period talk for girls, and I guess I had just kind of learned from like friends and the internet what sex was. But I remember asking for a sex talk from her, and she was very like weird about it. And she was like, well, you read dog encyclopedias, don't you? You know what dogs do, that was my sex talk. What do dogs do? That's like gross and slightly bestiality-esque, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty fucking gross. And then I remember her too telling me when I was probably about 13 or 14 that my father had a porn addiction. And I remember not even really knowing what porn was. And I looked it up. So I like sexually abused myself there, because I was like curious, like what does she mean? And yeah. No, it's not me abusing myself, but I definitely sought out harmful material without understanding that it was harmful, because I had been introduced to the word by her, to kind of make me think my dad's a pervert or something. I don't know. She always has been really big about like projecting, and anything she's guilty of, she's going to accuse everyone else of. Okay, there's more. This one was a little confusing for me, but it said like rules and restrictions, which was hard for me to differentiate between like normal rules versus like child torture rules and restrictions. But it said basically that these will be more about your individuality rather than like your safety or health. And these are required, and failure to follow these comes with consequences all the time. So like, I wasn't allowed to wear spaghetti strap tops because my bra strap would show. I wasn't allowed to wear skirts, low-rise jeans with holes in them, shorts. And some of this was like in accordance with my school's dress code too, so I don't necessarily see this as terrible. I wasn't allowed to leave dishes in the sink. I also was not allowed to hand wash the dishes because I wasn't good enough at it. And if I touched the dishwasher, I was making too much noise and I was going to break all the dishes. So it kind of left me to go and hide dishes in my room because I didn't really know what else to do with them. And then, of course, I would be called dirty and gross for having dirty dishes in my bedroom, which is kind of gross. I wasn't allowed to eat her foods. Anytime I snacked, I got called fat. So this wasn't really a rule or restriction on food, but it was just another way to like abuse me mentally. Um, and yeah, nothing was like allowed to be out of place in the house. If it was, obviously I got yelled at and I got sent to my room. I got sent to my room a lot. Oh, and I had to look at her in the eyes and listen while she complained about her entire day or anyone else in her life that she hated, which is everyone. And if I did not, I was a brat, and she would still follow me around the house. I could walk all the way around the house. Our house went in a loop, and I remember I could walk all the way around. She would just follow me, complaining, and then if I wasn't listening to her complain about other people, they would turn into complaining about me. My regular voice was snotty. My normal face, or my normal expression was rude. Yeah. And then, like I said, this one was a little difficult for me to really understand on my own, the difference between normal home rules and like what would constitute as like part of the child torture. Silent treatment / withholding attention or affection. She would ignore me for days if we got into arguments sometimes, unless we were like around my dad. I don't know if my little brother remembers this, but I remember like trying to ask her like what was for dinner one time, and we had like gotten into an argument, and I'd gone to my room and just like separated for a bit, and then when I came back trying to ask what was for dinner, she like wouldn't even look at me, wouldn't talk to me, and this was kind of a recurring theme, if which just is really cruel to do to any child, but much less your own child. Additionally, with like withholding affection, I never heard "I love you." I never heard "sorry." Just I kind of threw that in there. The next one in that Psychology Today article was financial abuse. I was not really financially abused by her. But because I didn't have money. But in a way, maybe this is financial abuse. Like she wouldn't let me get a job until I was 17, and then like I didn't have a car or anything because I didn't have any money. So if we ever got into arguments, she would either refuse to give me a ride to work or a ride home from work, which did interfere with my ability to make money. So I don't know if that is considered financial abuse, but she definitely financially abused my dad. Even though he was the moneymaker, she was just constantly ringing up debt on his credit cards, even to the point where like when they finally got divorced, she tried to she spent 50 grand on one of his credit cards and tried to make him pay for it to get herself new teeth. So yeah, she definitely loves money more than she loves anything else. And then the last one on there was legal abuse or institutional abuse, which means basically using the legal system or institutions to abuse the person. So I brought up the solo family therapy thing. That's kind of using like the institution of therapy to abuse me. When like I would either run away or after suicide attempts, I would get put into psych wards, and this would later be used to degrade me and call me crazy and say that I didn't know what reality was. And I also remember her too, like really trying to pressure one of my psychiatrists to put me on lithium, and he said, well, I don't really think that's necessary, and we never went back to him again. So yeah, she thought she knew more than doctors too. And then also too with legal abuse, when I discovered that my mother was sexually abusing my son because CPS came to his school after something he had said to his teacher, I didn't have a great reaction to it. Obviously, I was probably in some kind of like mental breakdown when I got that news. I remember like the room feeling like it was spinning, and like I was here, but I wasn't like able to move my body. It was like I was here and not here at the same time. Maybe a bit of like depersonalization, derealization. But when I discovered that my son had made these claims, I fucking called CPS on her, and I like it was a huge blowout and argument here, and of course she screamed at my son, and I tried to get a restraining order against her and get her out of the house that we shared with my dad, but that didn't really work out because she ended up then filing for a restraining order against me, and she paid for a lawyer. I didn't have money for a lawyer, so I ended up just signing at no contest, which basically meant like I don't agree with any of the things she's saying in here, but she like made up a bunch of lies, was saying that I had all these mental disorders that I've never been diagnosed with, and I did say that pedophiles deserve to die, so she said I threatened her life, so I guess I did, and yeah, that was a lot, but yeah, I just wanted to share what I have now. I don't know if I'll ever be able to share really my full story with the world. I would like to, but I just don't know when I'll be there, and I'm not gonna push myself to be there anytime soon. But this was what I felt comfortable enough to share, because it was so incredibly validating to hear all these different aspects of my childhood come together. But it's been a little crazy making feeling, like to understand that people are calling this torture. Intrafamilial child torture. I always thought I didn't really have it that bad, because like I said, I was never like raped. I was never like beaten in like black and blue. I never had a black eye. I mean, I'd been in some physical fights with my parents before, but it wasn't, and I don't know, I guess I made excuses for the spankings because that was very normalized in the 90s. Not necessarily the way I was spanked, but my spankings were always minimized too, with the fact that my mother used to be hit with leather belts as a child, and I thought, well, at least it's not a leather belt buckle side, you know? But yeah, I spent a long time minimizing what I'd been through in childhood, and so it was really validating to hear other people talk about how their own story with it. And I think that no matter what, even if you're missing a couple of these key elements of, child torture, I think if you've been through it, you still need to be able to validate to yourself that this is not normal or okay at all. And sure, I wasn't like sex trafficked, or I didn't have the shit beat out of me every day, but my pain was still painful, and it still has affected me my entire life. So yeah, I just wanted to share that little bit. Thank you to anyone who listened, and I hope that you can feel a little less alone. That's my point in trying to share my story. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.